What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are having a great day out there, busy day of earnings. And right now we're going to talk about Advanced Micro Devices, better known as AMD, and that is the ticker on this one as well. Over the last year, this stock is just up, 52%. Year to date, though, it was down. This is one of the few stocks that I actually have been buying. And then when you get over to the stock chart, you'll see why I was in here buying. And luckily, this one did work out. They don't all work out, but this one did work out. Now, AMD, at least in the shorter term, AMD stock is popping in the after hours due to earnings blowout. Data center sales double, full year sales forecast raise. We're going to get into the numbers. I'm going to show you all the revenue, all the profit with this one, the explosive growth with this one as well. We'll talk about the guidance as well, just really quickly here. They came in at Q2 at $3.6 billion, plus or minus 100 million. The consensus was 3.2 billion. So they really did a nice little upside guidance to that one. And they say they're non-GAAP gross margins coming in at 47%, which I think is a point higher than where they were. Now, from a high level, we've got our GAAP quarterly financials, which is what I tend to focus on here. If you want to look at non-GAAP and figure out the differences, there's not a lot of difference here. And so when there's not a lot of difference, I just focus on GAAP because it's just easier, okay? We've got revenue growth up over the last year, a 93%, gross profit up 94%. Operating expenses, those have to come up as well, but not nearly as much as our revenue or our gross profit. Operating income, that's just up 274% over the last year. If AMD was a girl on Tinder, I'd be super liking and swiping right as fast as I could, because that is absolutely as fantastic as it gets in the stock market. Net income up 243%. Earnings per share up 221%. Let's jump into the numbers, and then we'll jump over to the stock chart with this one. This one's done something interesting. It's bumping up into another range. Are you too late with AMD? Can you buy it here? We'll talk about that here in a minute. Now, first things first, let's get over to the numbers, because in order to, really get a grasp if you need to buy this stock or not, you want to take a look at the numbers. We've got 3 months ended here, net revenue. We've got quarter over quarter. So I like what AMD does here. So here's our most recent quarter in the left-hand column. The middle column is the previous quarter, and the right column is a year ago. So you got year over year, quarter over quarter type thing. So we've got our revenue came in at $3.5 billion. We were at 3.24 last quarter. We were at 1.8 in the previous year. I thought that was fantastic. Okay. I was sitting here in March of last year thinking, wow, this is fantastic. AMD's doing 1.8. Now they're doing 3.5 basically. That's just unbelievable. Cost of sales coming in at we'll call that 1.9. They were at 1.8 here, and they were at 968 million in the previous period. That gives us a gross profit of $1.6 billion in the most recent period. We were at 1.5 last quarter. So nice growth just quarter over quarter. And then we saw year over year, you're at 818. And so you basically doubled the gross profit. Now, they've got some research and development. They've got some marketing, general, and administrative as well. But those are staying relatively flat quarter over quarter and even year over year, despite the explosive growth we're seeing on the revenue and the profit side. The cost of this hasn't really grown that much. So we've got this operating income went from 177 last year all the way up to 662. That compares even favorably to the previous period. We were at 570. This is just phenomenal, explosive growth. This is exactly what you need, because look, this stock isn't necessarily cheap. From a price to earnings basis, you're trading at 40. This is $100 billion market cap on a stock like this, and you got $662 million worth of operating income in a quarter. So it's rare. I would say it's fairly richly valued. So you got to combo that with revenue growth, profit growth, and that is exactly what AMD is doing. And as long as they can continue to do that, things should be going very well for this company. Now, they've got income before income taxes and equity income, because we see here in the last quarter, they had a gigantic income tax benefit. Okay. So you could come down here to net income if you wanted, and they printed 555 versus 1.8 billion. It doesn't look very favorable on a quarter over quarter basis, but factor in 1.2 billion of that is from income tax benefit. We look on a year over year basis, we were at 116 and we printed 555 on an earnings per share basis. That's 45 cents per share. We're at 14 cents a year ago. This company is absolutely on fire. Now, on the balance sheet side with AMD, you'd like to see, how are they financing this type of growth? Do they have a healthy enough balance sheet to kind of support this? I tell you what, the balance sheet is really, really clean, but it's also very lean. They don't have a lot of assets here, at least from the cash side. You got cash and short-term investments. They've got 1.7. This is December, basically the end of this previous year, and then to the current date, March 27th, at least on this one, you got about $3 billion worth of cash, essentially. You've got another 2.1 in receivables, and I like that they've got inventory. Okay, we got 1.4 billion in inventory at the beginning of the year. Now we got we'll call that 1.7 billion. I don't always like to see companies increase their inventory. In this case, I do. When you have this gigantic amount of sales growth, profit growth, and the fact that we're seeing shortages in the chip industry, not only on the automobile side, but the computer side, pretty much all over the place. Well, look, I like that they have inventory. They're going to be able to sell that. You know that for a fact. Now, we got our total assets. They went from, we'll call that about 9 billion up to about 10 billion. But here's what gets beautiful. I mean, this is just, I'm in love right now, okay? Long-term debt here, barely got any, sitting here at 313. Okay, there's like almost nothing here on the, you got current liabilities sitting here about 2.8 billion. Not a whole lot going on. It looks like they've got some account payables here. Could be related to inventory or something like that as well. So I love what I'm seeing here. This is a company that has as much on cash on hand as they do liabilities, okay? Let alone inventory, the other things that they've got going on the asset side of this business. Now, they really condense the cash flows here. And so from a cash flow perspective, they don't really give you a lot of visibility. You could probably back your way into it. But what I wanted to show you here before we get over the stock chart is this selected corporate data. So here's our segment information. So you're thinking, wow, this company's growing. What the heck is growing? So they've got this computing and graphics. Okay, this went from 1.4 to 1.9 last quarter to 2.1. So we're seeing year over year growth, as you'd expect, but also quarter over quarter. And not only that, they're squeezing out more operating income. Okay, you went from 420 up to 485. Here's where things get even more exciting. Enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom. We printed $1.345 billion in the most recent quarter. That is $1 billion with a B. Over last year, they bolted on $1 billion to their second biggest business model, and it's even up from the previous period as well. Last year, they lost money, literally lost money in this segment, lost $26 million. This year, they made $277 million. Boy, I gotta take a step back, because this is about as fantastic as it gets. Now, from a valuation perspective, probably a little stretched. From a price to earnings basis, probably a little stretched. All this stuff considered, but when you factor in the growth and the momentum behind the chip business that AMD is finding themselves in, not only that, you got competitors like Intel, which are essentially restructuring and pivoting. AMD is in a pole position right there with NVIDIA and other chip makers to swallow up a ton of business. Now, this thing pulled back. I was buying AMD between 75 and 80. I was really loving this stock here. I even like it from 80 up to about $81, $82. Do I like it here? Now we're up at, I'm going to put a line up here at $88. This is where the stock is trading right now. We're seeing it up about 4% in the after hours. We went from trading in this box down here with AMD to this box, and now we're in what I would call our upper end of the range. We're from $88 now up to about $94. I honestly see this one pretty much easily getting to $90. That's about $1.30 and change over this one. Once you broke above this level right here, which is $87, it was kind of a previous high here. It was a launching point here where we printed a big candle. It was support here and resistance here. So $87 key level for AMD. So I like that we poked up above it. Okay, now you break 87, all bets are off. We're probably coming back down to this moving average right around $83, $84. But I like the momentum in this one. I would anticipate this one probably staying above 87. 87 acting as support. If we get a pullback to 87, that could be a spot where you could potentially add, because again, it was support here, it was resistance here, it was a little bit of a launching pad here, it was even resistance here and here as well. So I like the 87 level. 88 is where we're at. And if the momentum can continue in these shares, you're looking for it to bust up above 94. Okay, I would certainly expect resistance to come in here. First stop is 90. Okay, if you can get above 90, 94 is almost certainly in play. You get above 94, and then the all-time high is close to $100 is probably in play on AMD. I like this stock from a long-term perspective because you've got just fantastic growth here. They can continue to grow this. The stock is probably undervalued if you take the much longer view on this one. I love AMD. I love the chip space. I love NVIDIA, and I love some others in this space, but AMD, from a price chart perspective, was an absolute screaming buy. I had videos on this channel where I talked about it, so don't say that I didn't tell you. And hopefully you were able to jump in on this one as well. I like what AMD's got going on. Hopefully you guys do too. Leave me a comment or a question, or maybe consider hitting that like button as well. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. We'll be back with more again very soon. Good luck with your investments.